just like being on, what is a webinar?
Oh, you know what? I didn't really do a webinar. There is a difference.
Uh-huh.
Did you ever go to did you go to the CMA, any CMA webinars in the past, or did you go to the recent, whatchamacallit thing?
No, no.
What's it called? Conference?
Yeah, conference. I used to go to those conferences all the time when I lived on the East Coast, when I was younger and like really hitting the pavement. But I haven't been for a while.
Okay. Well, they do webinars, and webinars, if you do it in Zoom, it's a different function, and you don't see everyone. You see just the speaker.
Okay.
And there's, instead of just the whatchamacallit, the chat thing, there's
Yeah.
also a Q&A section. So it actually just functions a little bit differently.
Okay, you probably just have to have a like a professional account.
You have to have a professional account, but also you have to pay extra for this feature. And
Okay.
I think it can hold more than 100 people. The regular Zoom is just 100 people.
Okay. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Actually, you know what I did? Okay, so then I've attended a webinar which was really interesting. It was through Harvard, and it was a Harvard music professor, and he was doing a webinar about the very first performance of a Beethoven symphony. And it
Oh,
was really cool. It was like pictures of the time, like what they were wearing. He even knew what Beethoven ate afterwards, and he had like little snippets from his journal and stuff. It was very cool. It was very cool.
that's very cool. Yeah, actually, it's funny that I don't, I chose not to do webinars when I organized these things for ACMP, firstly because I didn't feel like the fuss of setting up a different kind of format.
Yes.
But when I went to the webinars that I've been to, if you're not used to it, it looks better and it's more official, but it feels kind of funny. Like I think I was wearing my pajamas and I was sitting drinking coffee, and I went and I'm suddenly in this room with this person. I can't see myself, but I don't know if they can see me or not.
Right, right, right.
I'm slightly terrified that I was being seen.
That's so funny. I know it is. It's a whole new world. And actually, Stephanie, we're just on Facebook. We didn't even say anything, but I was just going to say, welcome to Inside Chat, Stephanie. It's great to see you. And just briefly, Stephanie and I were acquainted recently because of a connection kind of between our two organizations, I guess I would say, that we kind of have similar passions, similar interests. And we decided, well, why not be in touch and see what magic we can produce together? Because Stephanie is an amazing organizer. She's got such a vision, and such your website and your emails that come out are filled with such energy and excitement. It's just very nice to be part of your organization, which I joined last year. It's called the Associated Chamber Music Players, originally a amateur.
Yes, yes.
And so, can you tell us a little bit about what it is? Just tell us, actually, even before you tell us about Associated Chamber Music Players, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, whatever you want to say about yourself?
Sure. Well, I am a viola player, and as you probably know, you're an exception, because you're also an incredible organizer. But people that know the inside of any kind of music organization realize that they're all organized by viola players.
Well, I also play viola.
So you're legit. Yes, I've been a viola player, since I was 10. I started in the Vancouver Public Schools string program, and I'm also a chamber musician. I'm still a chamber musician. This is running ACMP is actually, surprisingly, it's actually a part-time job. Even though it's really not. But there's so much to do, and I love it. But I also am maintaining a performance career. I have a quartet called the Momenta Quartet, and I also play in. I'm the principal violist of the Princeton Symphony in New Jersey, and I do a lot of contemporary music. I play in a group called Argento Ensemble Ipse, and I was in the group Continuum, which is an old New York group, for a long time. I don't think the group is active anymore. I think we technically exist. Yes,
Mhm.
I had a nice varied career, and through my whole I would say that what drew me to applying for the ACMP job was I think we share this in common. I love to make things happen. I feel like creativity, like for example, playing, composing, improvising, those are all creative activities, and I do all of those. But actually, administration is also very creative. And being a violist, of course, I founded my quartet, and we're very collective, and all of my quartet members are very proactive and do a lot for the group. But I guess I would be the de facto leader in a way, but not really. But but it's a collective. But I've noticed over the years that one of the things I loved about having my own quartet is actually organizing the events and making the things happen. I feel like when you have an idea and you stop and you brainstorm and you think about all the steps you can take to make that idea happen, even if they're so-called boring things like writing grants and things like that, when the event actually happens, it's extremely satisfying. I don't know if you found that yourself with the Artemis Quartet and with Inside Academy, but when you have a little seed and you manage to do all those little things to make it happen.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when I saw the advertisement for this job, I was like, well, this is great. It's chamber music for pleasure. It's an outlet for this addiction I have.
Yes.
Things happen. And also it's a community. It's a whole new community that I hadn't tapped into so much before, the adult amateur community.
Yes, and can you can I follow that up with what is an adult amateur? Is it different than like what is the difference, do you think, between a professional musician, a student, and an adult amateur, or are they all the same somehow?
Well, the word amateur means lover of, music, in this case, amateur music. And so I guess technically an amateur is someone that does something for pleasure and for joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could say that we all did that.
Yes.
And that was part of what attracted me to this job. When I looked at the website and I saw that the mission was chamber music for pleasure, I was like, well, that's amazing.
Yes.
I want to be a part of this scene.
Exactly.
But having said that, as a professional, I get a lot of pleasure from music, and I think most of us do. But I guess amateurs are people that are not pursuing it as a career path.
Do you think that there was a moment in history? I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head. Do you think there was a moment in history when that definition wasn't so clear, when people were, when it was more fluid? Like I'm trying to think, like here I got Brahms behind me. Like when you hear about all those salon concerts and all those like people going to Schumann's home, and it was like a mix of people. Do you think the definitions between amateur and professional became more rigid?
Yes, I do. And I would love to get back to that earlier definition of it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my goals through ACMP is actually to strengthen relationships between so-called amateur players and professionals. And the truth be told, of course, the change of name from amateur chamber music players to associated chamber music players precedes me by probably at least 15 years. I don't know exactly when that happened. I think the reasoning behind it was exactly that. Because we also welcome professional members, and actually as a professional chamber music, there would be a lot of compelling reasons to be a member of ACMP. I mean, you're one. And
I'm a member. Yeah, I love being a member, and I love poking through and finding all the cool things you're doing. You know what, actually, I'm just kind of swirling my brain around, but I'm thinking, actually, during COVID, I really felt like there was this loosening of those definitions. And I felt like just like seeing people in their living rooms playing and like seeing something messy, or like a kid running behind them when they're playing a concert. I mean, certainly that was happening to us because we were doing concerts in our living room for different concert associations, but instead of playing with a piano or different things, it was just me and Jason. And because we wanted to make it more interesting, we rung our 9 and our 11-year-old into quartets. And so our daughters all of a sudden were playing quartets at the end of these professional concerts. We would play the full program, solo, cello, violin, and then duet. But then just to mix it up, we'd be like, and at the end, we're going to have the Quartissimos, which is our family quartet. And so our kids got a lot of practice actually playing in professional situations. And then once it got to be okay to play in the garden, we live in a really small town, so we don't have a lot of people who can play at a really high level, but we've got a lot of passionate people here. And so I just invited a couple people over, and we're just reading Mendelssohn and Beethoven, and it was such a mix. It wasn't me playing with like Artemis Quartet. It was me playing with neighbors, and then my neighbor Gordon's like calling over. He's like, I'm doing the weed whacking. I hope it's okay. Is that Beethoven? And then my other neighbor, I see like text from him, thank you for the free concert. And I felt like it was like an outdoor salon. I felt like there was that. And I love that. I love the mixing of levels and the casualness that has come with COVID. Have you found that also?
Well, actually, what's interesting, not only have I found that during COVID, but also I'm looking back at my own life. For me, as a child, playing with adult amateurs was a huge part of my life and a huge part of my development. And I eventually became a professional violist, and I had wanted to be since the very moment I touched the instrument. Even though it took me a very long time to get competent at it, actually. I knew I wanted to do it. But I used to, first of all, my teacher was an elderly man at the time. He was already in his, well, I think he was in his mid-70s. His name was William Gordon. Mm-hmm. And he was recently retired from the Vancouver Symphony, where your husband's dad
yes
was playing.
Yes.
Duckles. And he was a violist in the orchestra, but played both violin and viola, and he loved kids. And one of the things he did with his favorite students, the students that really loved playing, because there's always a few students that really are into it, he would get together and he would have other members, retired symphony members, play chamber music with us. Mm-hmm. So I used to go after hours, like Friday nights, to his studio and play quartets with him on violin. He played one of his students on violin and a cellist from the symphony. And then I joined the Vancouver Youth Symphony, and I became friends with another student violinist named Jens Heusser. Mm-hmm. And his father was Otto Heusser, who was, I think he was a nuclear physicist or something. I feel he passed away a number of years ago, I believe. But they lived a few blocks away from me, and they used to get together and play string quartets and quintets at their house. So with his dad, who was a nuclear physicist, Hans Carl Piltz, who was a professor at UBC, who recently passed away as well, and me and Jens and sometimes some other students. So that these were things I did as a kid, and I got so much out of this. And I would love for more of that to happen with ACMP. I know it already is happening, but the one thing I love about ACMP is this all ages, all levels, all backgrounds, all languages, all countries. Like,
yes.
People talk about inclusion. I mean, this is the epitome of inclusion.
Yes. And I absolutely agree with that. And that's similar to what we're doing. Like when we do practice buddies at Inside Music Academy. We were just talking about this, the two of us, the other day. I had an adult amateur who's an active doctor, and I paired him with a really go-get-him 14-year-old violinist. Actually, the doctor was a cellist, and the two of them would practice together every day, and they got so much out of it, and I think they're still in contact. And I think that's such an important cross, and that's maybe in American culture one of those things that we've kind of lost by separating our ages, having the kids in, and then the parents and the grandparents going into not living in the home. And so we've kind of lost that cross-generational activity. And I think, as well as you, I had some experiences as a young child. My mom would always bring us to all the circuit of retirement homes to play in before we were getting ready for competitions. And then when I was in 6th grade, my mom wanted me to be in orchestra, but it was before there was like a youth orchestra for little kids. My mom worked as the executive director of Chicago Youth Symphonies for 18 years. But when I was younger, they didn't have that. And so she would drive me 45 minutes to this adult amateur orchestra, and I was the only little kid in it. And I didn't know and it was really complicated music, and I didn't know what was going on. And I was, in 6th grade, I was like 11 or 12, and everyone else was really old. But I got to go to have a piece of pie afterwards at my favorite pie restaurant. So I was like, okay, I'll do this every Tuesday or whatever.
That's a good incentive.
Yes, I know. I remember I would get like the chocolate one with a big thing of white. Oh, it was just such a good pie. But anyway, that's a huge part of my education too, is spending 2 years doing playing with an adult amateur orchestra, which was really fun. And they just loved having me, and I loved talking to them. And I'm all into the mixing. I'm all into the mixing together.
Yes, me too. Well, we agree on that.
Yes. Let me see. I don't know if I have any other questions. I think this has been really wonderful. Stephanie, did you have any other topic you want to talk about?
Well, I have some questions for you, actually. And mainly it's because, now that COVID is ending, we hope, or at least getting under control, and there's a return to some sort of normalcy and more in-person playing, in-person teaching. Well, first of all, I was incredibly impressed about what you managed to pull together, the Inside Music Academy. In fact, I read about it in the Times before I realized I was on your email list. I remember reading that story about you teaching this one student in China, and this sort of this relationship you developed with him and this gift you were giving him before we all knew we were all going to be locked down too.
Yes. Yes.
But I was very touched by that story and impressed at what you had managed to pull together so quickly and sort of the innovation behind what you've done here. Now, of course, that things are opening up, I'm wondering where you see the future of online music education and the Inside Music Academy moving forward in a more normal,
yes,
normal world.
Well, that's really interesting because I've been able to see COVID through the eyes of, we have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old daughter, right? So I've been able to see their education this year online, and we've had a pretty varied approach to their education this year, and we've dabbled in a lot of different things. And of course, as you mentioned, I started Inside Music Academy last year, right at the beginning of COVID, and I designed it as an online thing. And I'm also, like you, because I'm half viola, I love to organize. I love to make the website. I taught myself HTML when I was in end of high school. I like to take my iPhone apart and replace the camera. I mean, I always like to take things apart. And my dad's an engineer, and so I like to take apart music, and I like to take apart organizations. So I designed IMA to be online. I saw everyone frantic last year, and then the people closing down, they can't handle it, or what people were doing, camps were going online but keeping the same format. I was like, oh my God, that's weird. Because first of all, people during COVID aren't going to be able to commit to huge amounts of money, and they're not going to be able to commit to 6-week camp. So I was like, right away, let's do a 5-day session, a bunch of 5-day sessions. Let's have no deadline. Let's keep it cheap. Let's keep it super flexible. If people don't want to be online all day, let's load up. Let's make a virtual building. So let's have a library with lots of stuff if people want to look in it. Let's have practice buddies, and let's have places where there are no teachers. Let's have flexibility and laughing, and let's have live music every day, and let's play for each other every day and not have it be playing to be perfect, but just playing through it. If you want to play the same thing every day for 5 days and have a goal. And then let's have really crazy classes. The stuff that you would be afraid to do by yourself, like learning how to conduct, learning how to podcast, which is what I do, learning how to draw cartoons, silly cartoons of composers. And let's have a game show, and let's have very intense stuff. Let's have like really famous guest masterclass people. Let's be able to study with someone who teaches at Curtis, or study a different instrument. You know, maybe your second instrument is piano. Maybe take a week of piano. And so it ended up being something that I designed for online. And to answer your question specifically, I don't see any reason that Inside Music needs to change. I want to keep it online. I want to just continue to develop it. I'm developing more curriculum for during the year, maybe something a little bit more for adult amateurs. Like I used to run a music book club for Slip Disc. So I was going to do an interactive music book club, maybe similar to that Harvard talk I was talking about, where we can actually take videos and walk into Paganini's house, or maybe go into Geigenbauer, a violin maker in Berlin, a friend of mine, and he can show us around his place, different things. Or we can talk to a famous violinist and they can show us their Stradivarius and talk about it. And then we can read the book and maybe travel along the route of the book. So I feel like I'm just bursting with ideas because of COVID. And I'm going to have a in-person camp as well. But I also think, like you said, there are people from all over the world at ACMP. And that's an amazing thing. An amazing thing. And so I want to just keep that. And I think it's totally, totally valuable. So I don't see why we can't live in both worlds.
I agree. And actually, one thing that I think is very special about online learning, which is, one of the silver linings that we've gained from COVID, is this this increased access of extremely high quality educational tools to people who might live in areas that do not have that.
Yes.
Countries that do not have it, small towns, rural areas. As long as you can get internet, you can access this, and you could be studying with someone, as you said, who teaches at Curtis.
Yes, it's amazing.
And you could be living in Cuba, and you could study with someone who teaches at Curtis, and hopefully the other way around as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that's an incredible thing moving forward, and I think, as you said, hybrid. We can now have a hybrid life where we continue doing this kind of thing. And for me, through ACMP as well, I want to continue doing some of the online chamber music a lot of our members have been doing, as a way to keep connections between people.
Exactly.
Without expensive flights and hotels, and it's incredible. So our world is now getting bigger because of it, which is phenomenal.
Yes, it's amazing.
I really admire what you managed to pull together and so quickly.
Well, I think once you have the experience of having two little girls and then being in a high-powered quartet where you're gone half the time, you have to be able to do things quickly and very organized and with a lot of confidence. So I think I enjoy that.
Excellent.
Well, Stephanie, speaking of my children, I've just left them in the kitchen nook with their homeschooling stuff. So I think I need to go and unneglect them.
Yes. Well, it was wonderful talking with you. And thanks so much for inviting me. And I really wish you all the best with this summer's Virtual Music Academy.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'll talk to you very soon.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Okay, thanks. Bye.